Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Austin here, back with another Brawl Stars video. Today, I'm going to be ranking all the Hypercharges from an S tier to an F tier, so let's just get right into it. We're going to be starting with the F tier. First on this list is going to be Brock. I know they just buffed his Hypercharges, and that's supposed to make it better. Yes, but it still does not that much damage, and it's very, very easily dodgeable. So for that case, I'm just going to put it in the F tier. So next up on the list, we're going to have Pearl. Pearl's is just kind of unusable at times. All it does is let out some steam, leaves a burning area behind for 4.5 seconds. Not that great. I don't really even find myself using it all that much. So with that being said, Pearl is in the F tier. Last in the F tier, we are going to be talking Miko. This one stuns nearby enemies after landing for 1.5 seconds. Not that great in a sense compared to all the new ones that just came out and all the old ones. So I think for that reason alone, I'm just going to put them in the F tier. Now we get into the D tier here. One of the new Hypercharges is in D tier, and that is going to be Barley. Barley, all he does is he throws 3 big brews that destroy all bushes on impact. Although that's great, don't get me wrong. It's better than Pearl, Brock's, or Miko's in my opinion, but it's just not enough for him to be used, especially with Barry coming out. Barry's like a mix of him and Carl in a sense. So I think that Barley is just going to fall below the meta and not be used as much. Next up, we're going to be talking about Maisie. Maisie used to have a really, really good Hypercharge. She was almost S tier, and then it got nerfed and things just changed in the game and it just fell down to D tier. It's still super good. It's just not as good as it once was. All she does is shoot her basic attack projectiles around her in all directions, kind of what Frank does, just very, very worsely, I guess, in a very worse way. And next we have Sprout. Sprout's Vine Hedge now damages nearby enemies. I don't think that's very good. It never was really good, even when it first came out with the max Hypercharge drop, but Sprout needs an upgrade, and Sprout needs a buff soon. Hopefully Sprout takes over the meta, kind of how Frank was, but we'll see. For now though, D tier Hypercharge. Jackie is also on this list. Her Hypercharge slows down enemies around Jackie for 1.5 seconds. I don't really think that's all that useful in a sense, because if they're kind of further away from you, they're going to run away anyway, and they're not really going to get that slow effect, and people can just run away from Jackie. They can see it coming from a mile away, so I just would put it in D tier, not use that much, and just really annoying to even get procced. Tick is also on this list. I know you guys might be wondering why Tick is on this list. I just think Tick is very, very dodgeable and counterable pretty easily. Not very many people use this one, especially in ranked, so for that reason alone, I think that Tick just fell below and is kind of in a worse spot right now just because of how easily dodgeable it is. But love the title that you get from his mastery. If you don't know, go check it out. And if you know, you know. Second to last on this list is Jean. I'm not too sure why people were going crazy about this. I feel like once the Hypercharge drop came out with Jean in it, Jean was talked about for a while, talking about how good it was. And I always just thought it was really, really mid. I never thought it was really that great, but looks like it just fell below the meta and nobody uses it now, which I don't really understand why people used it to begin with. It was a cool mechanic, bringing 3 different hands and whatever, but it's just not usable. The final one on this list, I hate to say it, I've been preaching forever, but Charlie's Hypercharge is not that great. Cocoon spawns 3 spiders that seek and attack the nearest enemy, which is great, don't get me wrong, but you can do that with the gadget, and compared to other ones like Frank's or Gale's, it's just not even comparable at that point. So for that reason, it's going to be in D tier. So just a recap of D tier, we have Barley, Maisie, Sprout, Jackie, Tick, Jean, and Charlie. Let's get over to the C tier. First C tier is going to be one of the new Hyperchargers, which is EMZ. I think EMZ is a great brawler, and I love the Hypercharge, but it just pushes back enemies and sprays once and then it's her normal super again. So for that, it's good if people are around you and you can kind of spray that and brawl ball and then take it to the goal. But other than that, it's just not very useful and it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. So with that, I'm going to put it in C tier. Another one from this Hypercharge drop is going to be Angelo. I love Angelo's Hypercharge, don't get me wrong, and I know they just buffed it. That's why I have him higher. I had him in D tier initially when I made this list, but they buffed the time to get it, so maybe it'll make it a little bit better. I played a few games earlier and it did not help. So with that, I'm going to put him in C tier. It's super, super good, but you can never get it. It's so hard to get, and that's the reason it's in C tier. It would be higher if you could get it more frequently though. Crow is also in C tier. I think his is super, super good, but only for game modes like Heist. It really does damage on the Heist, but other than that, it's really not that great. I would say even mid at best, but yes, I think that's just the best way to put it, is mid. Next up, we have Bell's. Bell's Hypercharge, in my opinion, is also mid compared to the new Hypercharges that came out for snipers, such as Piper and Angelo, but Angelo's still in this list because it's so long to take to get it. But Bell's spotting shot automatically follows the closest target. I think it's cool. You can see the people in the bushes and stuff, but other than that, it's just not that great. Then we have Shelly. Shelly is good. Hers is super, super good, but it's just been underwhelming compared to the other ones, so it fell into C tier. The super shell is 33% larger, which, don't get me wrong, is great, but at the same time, you don't want it to be larger because you want it to be as small as possible to do the most damage next to somebody. So like Frank, for example, if you're shooting Frank and you're really close to him, you want all those pellets to hit him. You don't want a wider range, but you never know, I guess. It could be good hitting another opponent, but I'd rather my shell space smaller. Another one on this list that became underwhelming with everything going around with new Hyperchargers is going to be Spike's. Stick around has 20% larger area. I think that's good. Don't get me wrong. I think it's super good. It helps with Hot Zone. It helps with many different game modes, but compared to the other ones, it's just very mid. And a lot of people can see it coming and just kind of walk out of the way of it or get stuck in the edge of it and walk around it. So for that, I just think it's super mid and not really viable or useful unless you're trying to cut off an area. The final one in the C tier is going to be Primo. Leaping high, El Primo drops an intergalactic elbow that brings enemies to the epic center, which is good in a sense, but like every other one in C, D, and F, they can see it coming from a mile away. And you can really get some good plays with it in my personal experience, because people will pop it and then roughhouse with you, fight for a second with Primo, and then do another. But other than that, it's just not that great. All right, so now we're getting into the better ones. So the B tier is a small tier, but we're going to go through it. Lou is better than Spikes, in my opinion. Lou and Spikes does around the same thing, but Lou super instantly freezes enemies in the area, which is super, super good. That's why I didn't put Spike higher, because I think Lou has better upside with his Hypercharge. So for that case, Lou is B tier and Spike is C tier, but I think that's super good, especially in Hot Zone when you just pop your Hypercharge, throw it on there, and your teammates can get a couple free kills. It can change the whole game. Next up, we have Cordelius. I would like to put him in A tier, but there's so many A tier good ones, so I had to put him in B tier. But Cordelius slows down his enemies when sending them to the Shadow Realm. Super good, don't get me wrong, but sometimes they just run away from you, and if the map's big enough and allows it, he'll be gone. I've had that happen to me plenty of times. So for that reason, I think it's a B tier. Next, we have Rosa. Rosa slows down all nearby enemies while her super is active. I think that's great, don't get me wrong. Rosa slowing down her enemies while her super is active, paired with her gadget that slows enemies in the bush. But the usefulness of it, you have to be in a bushier map for Rosa, and you kind of have to make sure it's not time detonation or anything like that. So for that reason, I have her in the B tier. Next up, we have Bull, another close range brawler such as Rosa, but Bulldozer reduces damage taken by 80%. That's super good, especially when he's running through a rampage or running through many different enemy combatants. But I think over time, him reducing the damage is great and all, but it's just not enough if he's trying to push somebody that's far away or it's a really open map. I'm not sure, but it's just hard to get close to somebody even with the 80% damage reduction. Finally on this one, we have Fang. Fang is a B tier compared to the other ones left in the two S and A tiers. Charge through walls while dropping popcorn on the way. Don't get me wrong, that's great, but the popcorn is very, very easy to dodge. You can see it coming from a mile away, and it just pops. So over time, it's just easy to get around it and find a different way to go through them. But the charge and the kick is really, really good. His super, but we're talking straight hypercharges right now. So that is the B tier. I told you it was a small list, but yes, that is B tier. Now let's start off with the A tier. We have BB. BB's bouncing balls split when hitting an enemy, so that is great. Having two balls on the field is super good, especially when they're going in different directions, and BB is a tank. So with that, it's super, super good, taking down other tanks or just taking down other enemies that are walking around. Next, we have Colette. If you didn't see my last video, top 10 brawlers to max out, Colette is one of them, and she's such a good one to kind of take down tanks and be counters to tanks, especially with her gadget that stuns. So with that, I would put her hypercharge in A tier because Colette's spirit follows her during her dash, damaging enemies on the way. Super good, super viable, and really can take down tanks pretty easily. Buzz's is super fun. Buzz's torpedo can now be used again if he hits a wall. Super fun plays to make. I've made many different plays with Buzz's, and in addition with the Godzilla skin. Super fun. I love the hypercharge skins, and I hope more of them come out. I know we got one more. Forget who it is, but yes, let me know down in the comments if you remember who that is. And while you're down there, like and subscribe. Are on the road to 500 subscribers, so make that happen. Thank you guys for all the support. Next, we have Dynamike's. I think Dynamike is an A tier hypercharge because his super bombs spawns smaller bombs, and you might say, well, they're easy to like kind of dodge and stuff, and you're right, but with that, it's hard to push Dynamike. It's hard to kind of find a way around. It takes up a lot of the map, so with that, I have him in A tier. Next, we have Jessie. Jessie's turret has 50% more health and deals 20% more damage. If you have never had a hypercharged Jessie turret on your heist, you don't know the pain. You could be up 60%, and one turret can change the entire game. That's why Jessie is in A tier, because it changes the trajectory of the game entirely, especially in heist, but even in other game modes like bounty. So for that, I'm going to put Jessie in A tier. Next up, we have Colt. Colt has Bullet Storm, is 120% wider, so you have a wider range when using your super with Colt, which allows more easily to hit opponents or if you're hitting the safe. So with that, there's little room for error in that sense. So with that, I think Colt is good in A tier, super easy to use, and anybody can really kind of pick up Colt and use it. But once you know you have a good Colt, you'll know. Next up, we have Edgar. After using super, gain charging speed and reload speed for a few seconds when in hypercharge, which really can help him out. It's kind of like playing the quickfire modifier when you're playing with Edgar with the hypercharge. So that's why Edgar is really viable now. I don't really see him being viable in any other sense. Even without the hypercharge, he's not that viable, but when you add the hypercharge, he really is viable. So that is the reason why he is an A. Last up, we have Rico's. Rico's supers projectiles bounce even further. It's kind of like his mutations around the Godzilla event, but they made it his hypercharge now, which is insane, and it's really, really good. It could be borderline S tier, so you could put it in A or S, depending on what you want. But yes, Rico is in A tier. It's just crazy, especially with the multi-ball launcher gadget. It's just ridiculous. Now let's get into what you guys want is the S tier hypercharges. First off, we have Frank. Everyone knew Frank was going to be in here. I don't even need to say much about it, so we're just going to move on. Frank, A tier, or S tier. Gale's another one. Gale is another one, being S tier. The new hypercharges are really, really good. Bustery Blow and hypercharge for Gale is great. I've used it in ranked. It's crazy. The Blustery Blow stuns enemies when they hit a wall, and you're bound to make somebody hit a wall when you're using the hypercharge with 2 waves. So trust me, use it, try it out. Let me know how it is. Next up, we have Max. Max throws an energy drink to each team member, increasing their movement speed and granting them 25% supercharge. That is great. If you can get all 2 of your teammates next to each other, you put that down. Each of them get a 25% supercharge boost and movement speed boost. Max is really, really good. His hypercharge has always been solid. It might not do a lot of damage or do any damage at all, but the support is worth it. You already know Sandy's was going to be on here. Sandy is on the S tier still. Sandy grants himself and his allies 20% increased movement speed while inside of the Sandstorm. His super will also silence enemies for 0.5 seconds when it lands. This is super good in S tier because of the way and how easy it is to get it. Once you get the first one, you can just keep rapidly getting them. So with that, I'm going to be putting Sandy in the S tier. Next up, we have Leon. Leon stays invisible while opponents are attacking, or while attacking his enemies. So this is really valuable, especially in time detonation. I got schooled in time detonation against a Leon, and I could not believe it. The map was super wide open, and he completely demolished me. It was insane, but yes, it's just super good overall. It's always been really S or A tier, and now it's an S tier for me. Another one from the new drop is going to be Piper. Piper drops even more bombs as she departs at an increased speed. She also destroys terrain when she lands. So that is very, very good for Piper. She's going to be making aggressive plays. Like I said in my last video, top brawlers to max out. Piper was one of them, just because you can make super aggressive plays and not be punished for it, really. So Piper is great. And last on this list, we have Nita. Nita hypercharges Bruce, making him increase in size, giving him 15% increased movement speed and 20% increased health. Super good, super viable, really fast to get as well, especially when you have your bear down doing damage. Oh my goodness, you can just cycle all these bears, and it's really annoying, especially if you pair it with the gadget that stuns the enemies while the bear is attacking. So those are the list. Let me know how I did down below and any suggestions or changes that you would make. And yeah, comment, subscribe, and like the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.